What if ignoring a tiny spot on your tooth today could cost you thousands of dollars and lead to permanent damage tomorrow? Most people think of tooth decay as something small, something harmless, something that can wait. But in reality, tooth decay is a slow and silent process that can turn into a serious problem if ignored long enough. In the United States, this happens every single day. People delay treatment because there's no pain, because life gets busy, because it doesn't feel urgent, and because they believe it will stay small. But it doesn't. What you're about to see is a full journey inside the tooth, a realistic look at what actually happens when decay is left untreated. From the very first stage all the way to serious infection, tooth loss, and high financial cost, everything starts on the surface. After you eat, bacteria in your mouth begin to break down sugars. As they do, they produce acid. This acid slowly attacks the enamel, the outer protective layer of your tooth. Enamel is incredibly strong. In fact, it is the hardest substance in the human body. But even enamel has limits. At first, the damage is microscopic. You can't see it. You can't feel it. There is no pain, no discomfort, nothing that forces you to react. This is why the earliest stage of tooth decay is so often ignored. It feels like nothing is happening. But something is. The acid continues to weaken the enamel. Minerals begin to dissolve. Tiny pores form on the surface. Over time, these small areas of weakness grow larger, and eventually a cavity begins to form. At this stage, the problem is still small. Treatment is simple, quick, and relatively affordable. A dentist can remove the damaged area and restore the tooth with a filling. In many cases, this costs a few $100s or less. This is the moment where the outcome is still completely under your control. But many people choose to wait. They tell themselves it's not serious. They decide to deal with it later. And that decision allows the decay to continue moving deeper into the tooth. Once it breaks through the enamel, it reaches the dentin. Dentin is softer than enamel and much more vulnerable. Here, decay spreads faster. The structure of the tooth begins to weaken from within. At this point, you may start to notice sensitivity, especially when consuming cold drinks, hot food, or something sweet. It's not constant pain. It comes and goes. And because it's still manageable, many people continue to ignore it. But now, the situation is changing. The decay is no longer just on the surface. It is progressing toward the center of the tooth, toward the pulp. The pulp is where the tooth is alive. It contains nerves and blood vessels. It is responsible for sensation and internal health. Once bacteria reach this area, the situation becomes much more serious. Inflammation begins. Pressure builds inside the tooth. Pain starts to appear. Sharp, sudden, and often unpredictable. It may begin as occasional discomfort, but over time it can become constant and intense. At this stage, a simple filling is no longer enough. The infection inside the pulp must be removed. This procedure is known as a root canal. It involves cleaning out the infected tissue, disinfecting the inside of the tooth, and sealing it to prevent further damage. In the United States, this can cost anywhere from several hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on the complexity. And even after a root canal, the process is not over. The tooth is now weaker and often requires a crown, a protective cap that restores strength and function. This adds additional cost and time. All of this from something that started as a small, painless spot. But what happens if the decay is still ignored? The infection does not stop at the tooth. It moves beyond it. Bacteria travel through the root and into the surrounding bone. The body reacts by forming an abscess, a pocket of infection filled with pus. This can cause swelling, severe pain, and visible changes in the face or jaw. At this point, the situation is no longer just dental. It becomes medical. Fever can develop. The infection can spread into nearby tissues. In rare but serious cases, it can enter the bloodstream and affect other parts of the body. This is when emergency treatment becomes necessary. Sometimes the tooth cannot be saved at all. Extraction becomes the only option, and once the tooth is gone, a new problem begins. Now there is a gap. Chewing is affected. Adjacent teeth may begin to shift. Bone loss can occur in the area where the tooth once was. To restore function and appearance, many people turn to dental implants. An implant is a titanium post placed into the jawbone, acting as a replacement root. On top of it, a crown is added to replicate the natural tooth. While implants are highly effective and long-lasting, they are also expensive. In the United States, a single implant can cost several $1,000s. When you combine all stages, root canal, crown, extraction, implant, the total cost can easily reach $5,000 or more for just one tooth. This is the financial reality of ignoring tooth decay. And this is where many people feel trapped. They delay treatment to save money, not realizing that the delay is exactly what makes the situation more expensive later. But the story is not just about money, it's also about control. Tooth decay is one of the few health problems where the outcome is highly predictable. If caught early, it is simple. If ignored, it becomes complex. There is a clear line between prevention and complication, and that line is time. So why do people continue to ignore it? Because it doesn't feel urgent in the beginning. There is no immediate consequence, no warning signal strong enough to trigger action. Life continues as normal. And the problem stays hidden beneath the surface, until one day, it doesn't. Pain appears suddenly. A tooth breaks. Swelling develops. And what could have been a simple fix becomes a major procedure. Every checkup, every cleaning, every early filling is like placing a green coin into your future. A small action now that protects you from a much bigger cost later. It's not just about avoiding pain, it's about staying in control. Because once decay progresses too far, control is lost. The treatment becomes reactive instead of preventive. The cost increases, the complexity grows, and all of it could have been avoided. So the next time you notice something small, a spot, a sensitivity, a change, remember what you've seen here. What feels minor today can become serious tomorrow. And the difference between a simple solution and a major problem is often just one decision. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing for more clear, visual explanations of how your body really works. Because understanding what happens inside can change what you do outside. And sometimes, that's all it takes to avoid a problem before it begins.